Well, thank you so much for being here, Mr. Lowe. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing great as well. Can you please share with us your pre high school years?
Well, I was raised in the South, Louisiana. I went to elementary school in both Shreveport and New Orleans. Moved around a lot, and I attended junior high school in New Orleans, Carter G. Woodson Junior High School. And back when I was a student there, it was still the segregated South. Integration and all those social issues was a big thing, social change. But I had good teachers. I had a good community where everyone lived in the same place. Teachers were in the same area, lived in the same area where you grew up. They attended the same church. Teachers down the street. I used to cut my teachers' lawn when they wanted me to, and it was more of a community. It was still something different when everyone worked in the same place, shared. I knew about Fremont back then because my sister had moved to Los Angeles, and she went to Fremont back in the 50s. And so I said, if I ever moved to Los Angeles, I want to go to Fremont because she talked about it in such inspiring ways and all of the things that were part of campus life activities. I was curious, and I knew that Fremont was a good school. Fremont also was a school where it was like a college campus at the time. Everyone wanted to go to Fremont. It was a school that won all of the awards and activities, sports as well as photography and art. That piqued my interest. Going to school in New Orleans, I had an art teacher that was very inspirational to me. I had several of them actually, even when I was in elementary school. They would take me to the museum, introduce me to artists. For example, like Charles White. He was a famous artist. He since passed. And his work was so wonderful. And they had a book, and they gave me a book with Charles White. And he happened to be exhibiting at the Delgado Museum in New Orleans. So remember, I told you things were segregated back then. So certain days you could go to the museum. Anyway, I saw his work, and it was just mind blowing. My dad already traveled here. Still, part of my family is in New Orleans. Only myself, my mother, and my younger sister rode the train. It was fun.
And what was that experience like for you for moving from one state to another?
Very different. It was culture shock. Los Angeles was very different from Louisiana, from New Orleans. The food, the experience with the teachers and students. It was probably 85 to 90% black and 10% white. And some of my teachers were white, and that was different. We didn't have white teachers back in New Orleans. The only time I did is when we had some special programs over the summer where there was classes that were taught when it was trying to integrate the schools. So that was different. The way kids talked was different. I had a strong Southern drawl and a strong New Orleans Southern drawl when I first came here. Even had a gold too. So it was quite different. I was kind of teased because of my accent and my phraseology, I think. So it all worked out as I started to assimilate more.
What a big culture shock moving from one state to the next. Sounds like you had more of a community environment in New Orleans. And
Yeah, because that was another difference. When I moved here, you pretty much lived on a block and you didn't know all of your neighbors. Back there, you knew all of your neighbors. You knew all of the people up and down the street and beyond. Even as a little kid, I can misbehave on the playground before the message got back to my mom. It's like it was faster than Google. They would call and we just called your mama, this and that. You're not supposed to be there. And by the time I get home, a whole lot of mothers or what have you have already warned me that when I get home, I was in trouble. Those longest, those be the longest walks ever. You looked out for each other. You kind of had to. Like I said, I lived in different places in New Orleans, by the way. For a time, I lived in the French Quarters for a while. That was a different experience, right in the center of the French Quarter. And then we moved to uptown area, and then out in Carlton. So it was different areas of New Orleans. They all had kind of the same sense of community, but different community structures depending on where you live. But the closeness was there no matter what.
Thank you so much for sharing. I was wondering, what was the community that you came to live with in LA, in South LA? What was that community like when you were growing up there as a teenager?
The community was always under siege by the police. You know, I mean, it was kind of hostile. You know, you walk down the street and you would be harassed or profiled. I learned not to be with too many friends at one time, but it was also a thriving community too, because at the time, you know, there was a lot of businesses and Pepperdine was just right down the street. They had a Ham's Bakery on the way to school that you stopped at. Is now this big church kind of thing. Goodyear was around the corner. You know, you had car dealerships, factories, food, bakeries, all kind of things. And those things started to leave, you know, with white flight and black middle class flight. It wasn't a large Hispanic population. You know, you had a few Hispanic kids, and we all got along just fine. When all the resources leave an area, it can devastate it. All progress isn't good progress. I like Fremont, the original Fremont that I attended, but all of the old buildings. It's like a college campus. It was the most beautiful school in the district. I guess if they call it progress, tearing down the buildings and putting up the new ones. Maybe it was because of earthquake reasons, but I know that it started to lose something. And also the turnover, you know, you start to break tradition, school tradition. That can really change things for the worse, in my opinion. But I think you asked me about the community. Because I would walk to school. You know, I loved Fremont when I moved further away. I think Jordan was closer, but I would, you know, take the bus, or if I wanted to save my bus money to buy lunch or something, I would walk. You know, run. I ran everywhere, or walk and run. They had little games at the time. As a matter of fact, I was walking to school one day, and I had to pass through Drew to get to because I lived on Firestone, past almost to Wellington, and cut through the areas. One group of kids gathered around me and wanted to take my money. The ritual goes, you know, they ask you for your money, you know, and you tell them what, you know, and I had saved my money. It must have been a Friday because I had saved my money. I had all the money from the week or so saved up, so it was. I didn't want to give that up. When they asked me for my money, I said, "Well, I don't have it." Well, one of the rules back then is that if you lie to a game and they find money on you, and you get beat up. So they would say, like, all the money I can find, I can have. I said, well, I don't have any. So we went to searching. I took off running. I hopped over this fence into a lady's yard, knocked on the door, and said these kids were after me. I didn't realize she probably was scared. She just peeked through the drapes and just ignored me. By that time, they were coming in the gate after me, and I ran and I hopped the gate. They were behind me. I don't know where I lost them, but I looked back. By the time I got to Hoover, they weren't there. Actually, I knew one of the kids that was in that gang. So I said, "Hey, man, why don't you tell your friends to leave me alone? I don't have anything to do with that." So I learned that people didn't have your back. I was a little guy. You know, I was glad I was little because a lot of times they didn't mess with you when you was little. You know, it's just like you're not their equal. It was a different kind of gang, though. It was gangs that beat you up, but not shoot you, stuff like that. At least that wasn't my experience. Most of the conflict would be at the dances that they would have. You know, you step on someone's shoe, that was a reason to fight.
What historical events do you think changed the neighborhood and changed Fremont?
Middle class flight, the big deal about busing, businesses leaving in droves. Because I used to watch the Goodyear blimp rise just from the classroom window. It was a big deal. They left with the
What
Carson.
what do you think, just based on what you saw growing up, in your in your teenage years in South LA, why do you think businesses left and haven't? I mean, I know some have come back, but didn't really fully come back to help sustain
Yeah,
the community.
it was sad to see it happen. All of the money, all of the wealth, nothing recirculating into the community. Nobody wanted to stay. I could I could walk home to this day from Fremont. It take me 1 hour. Because a lot of times I had to walk home when my car was down. When I take my bicycle, it's 30 minutes. When I drive, it's 15. For me, I think that when a school or area become commuter, where you don't have to engage with it once you get until you get off the freeway, and then you're out of there. It can't be good. And the rebellion of '65, it happened 2 years before I attended Fremont. The areas that are on Broadway and a lot of places are still scarred. Nothing like it was there before, because they had a little downtown area there.
Since the rebellion of 1965, it never recuperated.
No, no. And after that, businesses start leaving, institutions start leaving. And I think after the change of the tax base in '76 from the Howard Jarvis tax proposition, funding the schools were never the same. You have to have a tax base. A lot of the people who lived there and moved away, they probably rented their houses and sold their houses, many of them dilapidated, to the residents who bought them at market rate, and then they benefited in their new dwellings out in Valencia and Norwalk, other areas they moved to. So there's no vested interest. But if you're going to teach at Fremont, you ought to live within 1 hour of walking distance from Fremont. Because where's the investment? Where's the investment, the human investment? When I was a master teacher, or when I was a mentor teacher, I used to try to help teachers. I've been a teacher since '73. I started teaching at LA Southwest College at 23 years old. I was one of the youngest instructors. I taught at Otis Art Institute 3 years coming out of high school on the Saturday program. Taught in Dominguez Conservatory. So I try to bring all of that teaching experience and knowledge of art to my kids. A lot of my friends would say, "Why are you teaching over there? You can be here and there." But I always wanted to give back. When I taught over at it's called Johnny Cochran Middle School now, but it was Mount Vernon. And at that time, I was teaching at Gage Middle School, and I liked that. I liked the middle school kids at the time. I taught there 10 years. And I just got in the program just the way I wanted. I said, I don't want to leave. Said, yeah, you do. And I kept me trying to make excuses. I said, the principal won't let me. We got ways of working around there. I said, oh man, if they want you, they'll find a way to get you. I didn't start working at Fremont till the very day the session opened, because I think that was September of 1990.
What was your most memorable moment as a student at Fremont? What do you remember the most?
I remember, of course, my art classes and teachers. I remember going to the counselor asking her to let me take typing. You can't take typing. I remember wanting to take biology. You can't take biology. I don't know if this was called tracking or whatever. I don't know the meaning of tracking anymore. I've been away from education for a while. I wanted to take algebra. You can't take that. I had new math with Mr. Needlegall. It was kind of interesting because I learned logic. To this day, I remember, all beings are things and some things are not beings. And, you had to figure out the logic of what the answer is. The first thing I needed when I went to college? Typing. Okay, the one thing I wanted to take.
Why was it that if you wanted to take typing, was it because of the way the programs were set up?
I wasn't supposed to go to college. You had the kids who were going to college and kids who are not supposed to go to college. They gave me art classes. So it's some system that was working at the time, but you couldn't get those classes. Wouldn't give them to me for nothing in the world. I wanted to take literature because I know that a lot of other friends I knew were reading all these great novels and what have you. I wanted to take I wanted to take literature so I can read those novels, and so it was so much that I didn't have and didn't take, and so little expectation for me when I graduated. I knew that I was really gifted in art.
Was that something that started for you when you were a little boy, or is that something that you kind of fell in love with along the way?
Started when I was a little boy. I used to get in trouble. My brothers and sisters were artists and pastel and painting and other things. And I used to go and try to correct their artwork and try to paint all over it. They said, "We're gonna give you your own tools. You can leave our stuff alone," which I thought was pretty good. I probably messed it up or something, but I used to always draw over their stuff. So they gave me some artwork. And then teachers at the time would teach me a lot of advanced techniques. Would kind of take me under their wings. Like I mentioned to you before, we all lived in the same community, and they all wanted to adopt me. I guess I was adorable or whatever. They always wanted to adopt me, and so I learned about a lot of different processes. Got a chance to have books available to me and looked at a lot of artwork. I kept a sketchbook. I used to draw all of the time. As a matter of fact, I used to draw when I was in Shreveport as a little boy. I lived in the projects in Shreveport. So if you know anything about the projects, the unit next door to you shares a door. And my best friend lived next to me. And we used to make drawings and slide them under the door to each other and draw and communicate that way after nighttime or playtime was over, and talk to each other through the door adjacent. I think it's designed like that for larger families, and you can expand the units. Those are some of my earliest memory. I used to do embroidery and stitchery with my mother, sew and do needlework and stitchery and all those types of activities. Then I came out to Fremont after the rebellion. You had a lot of people trying to do things to help. So I was a philanthropist who, along with people at Golden State Mutual and a few other companies, and blacks weren't getting into art schools. At the time, did maybe 1% or something like that. So you had this group interested people from different universities, Long Beach, and they go around to the high schools to see where there were kids who had talent, and you had to provide them with a sketchbook of your work to make it like a competition, so they can give you lessons in art. Some of the big art schools at the time was in the Los Angeles was Art Center, Chenard, and Otis, all which moved away. Art Center moved to Pasadena. Chenard moved to Valencia, which became CalArts, and Otis was the last one to leave, but it eventually moved to Westchester. But at the time, they were looking at sketchbooks and what have you, and I was picked to do this program at the art school on the weekend. And you're a kid, maybe different now as a teenager. You had Saturday morning cartoons. You didn't want to miss that. But because this was such an opportunity, and you couldn't record what you missed like you do today, so that was a sacrifice. And so it took 3 buses to go out to where the courses were taught. And I took life drawing in high school. I think I was in 11th grade. I finished up 10th grade and learned life drawing. 3 years out of high school, my work was strong enough for them to hire me to teach that program.
What did you do after high school, after you graduated?
Good question. The reality set. I was kind of at a loss, and I called the teacher. I said, "Well, what do I do? I don't have a scholarship. I can't pay for courses. I want to go to college." And so he said, "Well, look, go to Southwest College." I said, "Where is that?" He said, "It's off of Western and Imperial." I said, "Western Imperial? There's no college over there. It's like the gas company or something. There's a bunch of bungalows and stuff." No, it's a college. So I went over there and enrolled. And I said, "It is a college, huh?" And because kind of sunk it in, I said, that's Devil's Dip. That's where I used to ride my bike over in that area." So, I enrolled to attend Southwest College, and that was 1970. 12 units, and like I said, the 12 units probably 4 classes. It was 3-unit classes, and it was hard. It was really hard. You had papers to write for English because they put me in, and before you could take biology and those courses, you had prerequisites. They put me in prerequisites courses because it would be the first time I heard any of this information. A lot of students when they go to college, they've been exposed to it before, but when I went, it was all new, and it was all new every single day. I mean, I used to say to myself, how much more information can a teacher give you? And you had to learn to take notes and to write and what have you. And so, which is why it took me 3 years to leave Southwest, because that first year was spent in prerequisites. I knew I could ace all my visual arts classes, and struggled with these other classes because when you had to type a paper, it was one letter at a time. You had to search the typewriter for it. I would peg and peg. I remember a couple of girls used to see me and say, "You can't type." I said, "No." I said, "Okay, write it out and we'll type it for you." Someplace. So I would write in longhand and they would type it for me. And not in all occasions. I had to spend time retyping something where you had to put white out, because not all teachers will accept your work if you use white out on the paper. I don't know if you know what that is. Yeah. So I used to, and it makes the paper look so terrible. So you have to type it all over again. That's what I would do in terms of typing. And then when I finally got biology and some of the other courses, it was so hard. It was a lot of work. It was so hard. So you take just the courses that you needed to graduate it, to graduate. But you kind of wanted to take microbiology or some of the other courses, chemistry or some of the other courses that the next level.
It was a big transition, like a challenging transition from high school to college.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And in '75, I transferred to Cal State Dominguez.
Was it difficult as well, that transition?
A little bit easier because I already spent 3 years in college and I was used to the rigor. You can tell when you've gotten a little bit more able to do work with more rigor if you start taking more units. So whereas I was able to take, instead of taking 12 units, I could take 16 units. One time I took 20 units. I won't do that again. You take what you're able to do, you advance. And they were difficult courses, Even I had a philosophy minor. And I don't know if you read philosophy before, but it's a lot of hard reading, especially Immanuel Kant. And so, you have to concentrate on what you're reading and write papers and what have you. And my major was fine arts, and to have art history class. And so as you start to do more, be able to listen to lectures longer, because in my case, it took time. There was a time when a 10-minute lecture could put me to sleep. But then there was a time came where I was hungry and, an hour lecture passed and you say, is that it? So you get more and more engaged and you build off of what you learned earlier. It's kind of like kids go from elementary school. They spend their first couple of years learning to read. So I felt really bad for kids who couldn't read when they came to high school. I mean, not at at a level that they needed for comprehension. So you can't spend that time trying to learn to read when you need to spend that time reading to learn. I know the difficulty I had trying to navigate through high school and college. I'd said to myself, I'm going to demystify stuff for the kids. In my class, I would have the kids pair off. We did something like cute retelling, where the kids read in pairs, read themselves, and then they tell the other students what it is they read or learned. They leave my class with an old-fashioned binder full of all their work and activity and portfolio. They can take to college and share with their college advisor. You have a body of work. You have something to show at the end. The way I had my class is structured is that you had maybe 3 days of what we call lab work and actual work, and then 2 days of lecture and reading and engaging the concepts. A lot of people think that art is just mark making. You know, it's just a different lens for engaging. You just moved over and looked at it from a different perspective. The same material.
What inspired you to become a teacher?
You know, in Cal State LA, when I made the big mistake of taking a degree program while teaching full time and part time, was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. But because I got MFA after I got my MA. But in college, no, to be honest, I actually was going to use teaching to support my art. You know, because I was a teaching artist, what I call it, the best description. I used teaching to support my art. But then, you know, teaching became a whole thing in itself. So you spend more time teaching. Teaching is a practice. A lot of people don't realize that. You know, it's a practice. You try to get better and better year after year. You take courses to do better. You rewrite your curriculum. You try to reflect on what you did the year before and see what you can do the next year to make it better. And the budget for art is always too little. I would go to Walmart and buy my own art materials because as the year go by, the products became less and less quality. But I think you asked me about whether or not I knew I was going to be a teacher. No, I'll be an artist. Most of these artists you know out here, I know them. The ones that blew up and have books and stuff. I went to school with them, or I taught alongside them at some point. And you know, you sacrifice. You know, I love teaching art. You know, I would be there hours after school. I love teaching. I love teaching art. You know, so teaching got to be really all consuming. And so I would still do artwork, but not to the degree I would have had I not been, you know, so involved with
Hello.
teaching.
Were you teaching at Fremont and at LA Southwest at the same time?
At the same time, yeah. So I would teach, you know, you have either Tuesday, Thursday teaching schedule or Monday and Wednesday, depending on how they structured it at the college. I would teach painting and drawing there. And the days that because it's only 2 days a week. As an adjunct instructor, they only give you 9 units to get it. As a matter of fact, I started teaching at Southwest before being contracted at LA Unified because that was 76 I started teaching there. And I was subbing to other districts like in the day at like Linwood and a number of the local school districts. Wait, one of my conditions for teaching at Southwest is that I had to be in the master's program. So I was in a full master's program. I was always tired. Because I would go to Cal State LA at night, the nights I wasn't working at Southwest, teach a sub all day in the district, and do a full-time degree program at Cal State LA at night. And you know, you're in the master's program, you can't get anything lower than a B. So there was times when I was there like pretty much all night, you know, and I would change and then drive to work with only like a couple hours of sleep. I always had good kids. But out of all of the administrators, out of the 37 years I taught, probably was about 2 or 3 that I thought were good administrators. I was encouraged by Mr. Heidel, the principal, to go into school administration. I took a few classes at Cal State in administration. I dropped out of the program and went and focused on the classroom. The hardest thing I did was retire. I loved teaching. Took me 37 years to become an accomplished teacher. Now I'm going to retire. So it was an adjustment after retirement. I was depressed. Miss the kids, miss teaching is one thing I love to do. It's not the case where, you've done it so long that's all you know how to do and such, because I always have my art. I do my art now. And occasionally I'll engage with the museum, which is why I was talking about Charles White earlier, because he had a major show, retrospective show over at LACMA, the Los Angeles County Art Museum. And if you Google it, you'll see that Charles White and his students. You'll see me in the film that I have a part with it. I talked about him as my teacher, and you see me in the film as a youth back in Fremont biting my nails, biting my fingernails. So at that time, like I told you, I was going to that art school on the weekends, and I was just, still a kid.
He was your positive role model. He was your influencer.
Yeah, oh yeah. So I asked myself, "Are you Charles White?" He said, "Yes, I am." Such a nice man. He loved kids. And it's like, I can't believe this. I learned about him in New Orleans as a kid. I had his book, and now I'm meeting him, and now I'm taking classes from him. How lucky can I be?
It's pretty amazing. Where can we find your artwork? Have you taken pictures of your artwork so we can see it?
Yeah, I have, and I'm just now starting to work on a series of work that's centered around my mother. And I was just finished working in a workshop over at Craft Contemporary Art Museum. So I was telling you earlier, I did stitchery and embroidery and all of these things for my mother. So I was going to do some fiber artwork, very different from how I work. I'm going to do a body of work that's centered around her influence on me and the work I did, mixing painting, drawing, and fabric and fiber art. I just started on it. I'm thinking about the essential questions that I'm going to be dealing with, and what the big idea that's going to drive this body of work. So it's just kind of like just the start of it. Hopefully within 2 years, I'll have enough or something. Because for me, my process is that I have to do a lot of work to find the best in it and the most meaning. So I see where it guides me, where the process guides me. Because I like so much different kinds of art. It's hard to answer that question when people ask me, what kind of artist are you? Are you a painter, drawer? You do painting, drawing, or because I've done photography, painting, drawing, taught photography. I was a board director at the Los Angeles Professional Photographers Association. The kids have learned to settle for less because they don't know more. The more you know, the more you're exposed to, the more you have to offer, the more you can have to enrich your life with. Kids used to often tell me, I take them to the museum. The one time I get to, I got to take them to the museum, is that we don't see any pictures of us. I said, okay, you want to see you on the walls, you got to do the work. No one's going to put you there but you. You paint your pictures. I guarantee you. And a lot of contests that we had, I got my kids there, help support buying their prom dresses or whatever. When you like your kids, you do whatever you can for them.
What's your favorite moment as a teacher at Fremont? Like, what's that one memory that you carry with you?
Seeing, the transformation students so that when they graduate, they feel like I worked for this, I earned this, I deserved this. No one gave it to me. It was hard work. It was engaging. Might have been tough, but you know, because I went to most of the graduation. I belong here, and I work for it. I want the kids to not be captured. I want them to want to be in school, learn school. I want that Fremont pride back. Football fields full of kids at graduation or at the games. You know, we lost. It's not the question you asked me, but we lost a lot of the school pride and the engagement. You know, you get the kids to be engaged, to buy in. You know, it's their school, and so it's hard to nail down any particular moment. I think just knowing that enjoyed their experience in high school, no matter what. It's just so little expectation for the community, for the school, for and you get the kids to buy in that too. So you know how is it going to revive yourself if there's a sense of hopelessness?
What advice would you give to students who want to pursue an arts degree?
To be a sponge. Museum has lots of programs for teens, and you know, take some of those classes, meet other people, engage with other students from across the city, and expand your understanding, your environment, your understanding of what life and art and pursuing education is all about. You know, college opens you up. You know, start small and move out from there in little chunks at a time.
And what advice would you give to students who are struggling, with whether they're struggling at home or they're struggling at school, the community's still unsafe. So what advice would you give to those students that are living in South LA now?
That's struggling can work to your benefit. It can make you stronger, knowing where you are, and find some positive goal model or program or something that can feed your inspiration. You have to stay strong. You have to know that you have worth, and that whatever inspiration or aspiration you have for life is there for you. And if you don't have it immediately, step away from anything that's negative and gravitate towards the positive. You know, positive people, positive positive role models. You know, take it a step and ask for help. Ask for help from people who are helpful. You know, if people are not giving you good advice, and you'll know what that is because it'll feel like it's good, and something that's not won't feel like it's good advice. So because for the most part, positive people love helping. If you go to a college and you be honest, or go to wherever you're going, community center, and be honest, say, hey, I'm here. You have to open yourself up. You have to trust, though, and say, hey, I'm here, and I want to go there, and can you help me? And people love helping students who have to work or who are pursuing. At least I did, pursuing something for themselves. You know, teachers or others will write recommendations for you or point you in a direction. Because if you don't know, you don't know. If you have no way of knowing it, and somebody can help you get there, it's all about helping. Then be able to take help and work from there. Keep a journal. Write things down. With time and effort and step by step, you can make those little tiny positive steps towards, and after a while, you start to see it pick up. But you got to remember to help others as well. Because a lot of people forget. Once you get in a place, reach back and help somebody, especially if they're asking for it. Students who are in a particular environment, know that And if it's negative, know that that's not you. Other people's opinion of you don't make you you. I can't tell you how many kids are devastated by what somebody else think of them. Their opinions don't make you. You make you. And the students used to tell me all the time, it's the choices, right, Mr. Law? I said, yeah, it's the choices. Sometimes it's not easy. It's navigating life as a young person is pretty hard.
Thank you for those words of encouragement and advice. Anything else you would like to share with us about your journey, about your life?
I like for everyone to try to do something that help put Fremont back to the status it once had. Go volunteer, be an ambassador, or join alumni to give back. If Fremont gave you anything while in your experience there, and in my opinion, it's your duty to make sure that traditions are restored. The We don't want to have to talk about Fremont in the past. We want to put Fremont back on the map. I'm not sure if it's off the map, but I know that there are a lot of good people living in that community and going to that school, and it's a place that I hold dear to my heart. I can't accept anything less than Fremont's shining, brightly as it should. So, see what you can do to help the students. Maybe I don't know if they still have speaker, guest speakers or what have you. Don't forget about Fremont. I haven't. Don't forget about where you came from either, because I haven't. Even if it's just volunteering to pick up paper that you see in front of the school, little things add up.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Those are very wise words.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for sharing, your life with us and your career, your history. It's very inspiring.
You're welcome. Google Lackmore. You'll see a picture of me.
I definitely will. Feel free to text us or email us your artwork. I would love to share it on social media.
Okay, I will. I got some things I'm working on right now, for sure, and I get that artwork to you as soon as it's done.
That's wonderful.
New stuff. I have lots of other stuff I'm working on, but the thing about being an artist too is that being in the art community, you have to show your strongest work, and so when my artist friends see my work, they can evaluate it based on what I feel is my strongest work. I have a little work to do.
We're all looking forward to it, and we can't wait to share it with your past students who are looking forward to hearing your story, and the students at Fremont and everyone that hears your journey. Thank you so much, Mr. Lowe.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.